All right, so we have short reviews from February 21st, just a couple of days ago, and we're touching upon, I guess, what I would consider some of the best records I didn't have time to talk about here in February. Some of them are just interesting for their ideas, others just their music, and I guess we'll just jump right into it with Necro Wretch's Swords of Dehal, out on Season of Mist. And this is a purchase of mine, wasn't sent to me. And I've always appreciated what Necro Wretch do. If you're a fan of Necrophobic and you remember they took quite a long break between records back around 2009, 2013, this band showed up right away on Century Media and they were ready to go with basically what sounded like necrophobic and early Swedish death metal, not related to the Stockholm sound. And they blackened it to make it that much more interesting. So if you're a fan of the first couple of necrophobic records, definitely pick up the first three Necrowretch records. Otherwise, the personnel of the band has changed a few times. They've changed record labels, and this I think this is their fifth full-length album. It changes things up beyond the 2020 record they put out, which was quite popular. There's a little bit more death thrash oriented. There's sort of a black thrash feeling to some of these songs, and a lot of what they're going for might even appeal to fans of Absu or Melakesh, the way the way they deliver these in kind of a brutal way. Otherwise, it does feel like they've traded sounding like Necrophobic for sounding like Watan, especially the most recent Watan records. So, although I like this sound, and these guys probably have more riffs overall when it comes to the leads and the sort of the hooks that they're writing, there is a little bit of Watan in there. Um, now they it's still an exciting record. You know, you can tell the score is fairly high here because I did appreciate it. It was a lot of fun to pick up, and I think it's one of their best records to date in this style. I didn't like the last one as much, so no really deep thoughts. You know, I picked it up for the riffs and I got those, so that's my recommendation basically. Spirits of the Mortified is the debut full-length album from Chronicles. This is a Bangladesh-based death metal band and a traditional death metal band in most sense. Now, they do a lot to experiment with different sound collages and extraneous noise and ideas here to keep things interesting throughout the full listen. And I think they do well to do that. It feels like kind of a mid-90s death metal record in a traditional style. Now, their playing isn't all that tight. They do have kind of like an earlier master feeling to some of their sound. It can be primitive and hardcore-ish at times, but it can also be brutal at other times. So I think they've stretched themselves out as far as they can here on this record, and it does kind of come together. There's some great songs on this record, plenty of riffs, and I think it's a great showing for a self-released record that's well worth checking out. I think they've generally checked all the boxes above average here, although the riffs they don't always blow my mind. You know, it's just I'm impressed that they came up with this very different from their last demo tape in terms of upping the quality and the quantity, and I think they've done well to scale up to a full length. So check that out. Black Hate is a Mexico City-based black metal band, and one that has more or less transitioned into more of a black death metal band. And I don't mean war metal or anything like that. This is a very groove-oriented type of black metal that is always kind of screaming at a 10 and has plenty of occult subjects in mind. This is a pretty impressive showing in terms of its art direction, its lyrics, and its concept. I think that's what drew me in. I was ready to really get into this record. And the first half of the record just has no real discernible riffs that really haven't find any quality with me. I just I wanted so badly to like this album, but the first half of it just has very simple groove metal riffs that just don't do anything for me. Now the second half of the album, it's much more active and the rhythms do get there. But there's sort of a cardinal sin, committed on that first half to where I just couldn't get all the way there with the recommendations. So, high marks for the themes and the artwork and all that, but fairly average performances in terms of composing blackened death metal riffs. Perdition is the second full-length album from Vang to further explore industrial metal and industrial sludge metal at that. And think of, like late 90s Godflesh in terms of the tuneful but harsh style of high fidelity modern metal, and you'll get an idea of what this is all about. I think that if you're a fan of Privation, last year's album, and the way that it kind of broke out into new avenues entirely, some of those alt metal ideas are still there. Some of the catchier moments are still there, but this is a much more stark experience. It's a little bit busier on the second half, and I think that I don't think they fully pull off the interesting or captivating cinematic values here, as much as they kind of just get busier with a lot of different ideas that are just all right for my taste. I don't know. The songwriting just didn't really pull me in the same way that it did, and I didn't find that repeated listens were as effective as Privation. So, a solid record, and I really would like them to continue in this style because they're so good at it. The Twilight Robes is the second full-length album from They Came From Visions, a Kiev, Ukraine-based atmospheric black metal band with some dark folk influences. And you might recall their 2020 record was pretty popular when it came out, and this one does well to deliver an even better full-length album experience, and one that increasingly focuses on guitar-driven melody and catchier pieces to sort of captivate the listener with their style, which is a unique sound design, encapsulates all of it to the point where I would just sit there and listen to this thing for like 4 hours straight every time I picked it up, because you could just kind of let it play. And there's the 7 to 8 minute mark for these songs is perfect in terms of just immersion and sitting with the record. So fairly high marks for this one. I probably want to spend more time with it, and Anthology of Horror is the second full-length album from Vincent Crowley. The second album that basically took some other members of Acheron after they disbanded and started on this more traditional heavy doom metal focused style, and the first record from the band wasn't all that substantive. I think that the riffs weren't really hitting on that first record. The production values were a little bit grainy for my taste, and it wasn't necessarily a step into something new or exciting from my point of view. But as I sat with this record, I became more and more impressed, because I did feel like there was a lot of charisma and energy put into this thing. There's a lot of creativity pumped into the rhythms, and I think that there's a lot more detail in general, that they've made a huge kind of step out of that first record and produced a pretty strong second record. I think the lyrics are kind of boring. I don't personally care about horror movies and things like that. So that, obviously that's going to be a problem with this theme, but that's not that they were bad. They were poorly written or anything. So not a huge amount of lasting value here. When we start talking about Candlemass and King Diamond, it has to be a little bit more timeless and more direct in its songwriting to really catch me. So those are pretty high. It sets the bar pretty high, suggesting that. But overall, a pretty strong listen. A lot of memorable songs, much improved over the first record, and I just enjoyed it. I think there's something very immersive about this record in terms of just being able to sit with it, and that just seemed to stand out for me with my time spent with it.